Hey, coming up next on Ham Nation, we have got Amanda. She's going to be talking chat room stuff. And we have George. He's going to be talking test equipment stuff. We don't have Bob and we don't have Gordo, but you got me. And, well, you know, I guess we'll just make the best of it. That's coming up next, right here on Ham Nation.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by DX Engineering. DX Engineering offers practically everything you need to outfit your shack, plus the fastest shipping in the industry. Most in-stock items ship the same day, Monday through Friday until 10 p.m. Eastern. For more information, visit dxengineering.com/hamnation. And by Icom. For more information, visit icomamerica.com/hamnation.
This is Ham Nation, episode number 389 for February 13th, 2019. Test Equipment Basics. Hey, good evening. It is Wednesday night. 8:01 right here, Central Time, and it's time for Ham Nation. Now, Bob Heil has taken some time off. He and his lovely bride, Sarah, are lingering romantically in Florida for a day or three. While Gordon, well, I don't know where Gordon is, but he ain't here. Which means that the inmates are in charge of the asylum. Can you feel the excitement? We've got George just up to my north in Jackson, Mississippi. How you doing, Chief?
Hey, Don, I am doing okay here. And as you say, yes, it is an asylum tonight. There was really no particular plan for tonight's show until just moments before. So we're going to let the chips fall where they may tonight.
Well, that's kind of standard operating procedure, I think. When the cat's away and the mice have full run of the kitchen. And speaking of mice, we've got our cute little. She has heart ears on though tonight. It's not really. I'm not sure. Are those like little Nico candies, the little Valentine's candies? Is that what those are supposed to be that they don't make anymore?
The Neckos? I used to always call them Neckos. No, these are supposed to be lit up, but I think the batteries died in them. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. And yes, I'm here as well. I'll be taking a lot of your questions and send them my way. Let's trip up George and Dawn tonight. How about it?
That won't be difficult to do. Yes, it is. We're the day before Valentine's Day, and Valentine's Day is the cool day. February 14th is particularly special for me because it was last February 14th when I got an email from Ancestry.com from a lady named Missy who said, I think we're related in some way. And it turned out she's my sister. So, yeah, I will celebrate my first year of having a sister tomorrow. So I'm very excited about that. And Missy occasionally watches, so hi, sis. There you go. All right, let's go ahead and get into the ham radio content, shall we? In fact, let's just start with Amateur Radio Newsline. We've got Dr. T in a nice long segment tonight. We've got some pretty pictures of the aurora tonight from Dr. T. So let's go ahead and get into the news of the week from Amateur Radio Newsline. From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 2154. These are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, February 13th, 2019. In Cuba, although Havana and the surrounding area were certainly unprepared for the scope of devastation from its recent historic tornado, amateur radio operators were prepared and did their best.
A rare tornado swept through Cuba in its capital city of Havana on the 27th of January. As the death toll climbed, local amateurs were already preparing to respond to what was the strongest tornado to hit the island since 1940. The storm had knocked out landlines and left cell phone networks seriously compromised. Using 2-meter repeaters in the capital, hams relayed information about the storm's path and helped coordinate municipal response on the ground. The team included such radio operators as Carlos, CO2JC, who is coordinator of the National Emergency Net, Daniel, CO2DFC, Osvaldo, CO2LD, and Vladimir, CO2VC, who were identified in a report from FRC, Cuba's National Amateur Radio Society. The latest reports indicate that by the time the storm had ended, 4 were killed and nearly 200 were left injured. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Kevin Trotman, N5PRE.
2 ham radio operators were among those to receive the Order of Australia Medal on January 26th, Australia Day.
Raphael Shami, VK2RF, a member of the Waverley Amateur Radio Society, and Phil Byrne, VK2MCB of the Rotarians of Amateur Radio for Australia, New Zealand and Oceania, were honoured for their contributions. Rafi is a member of the Wireless Institute of Australia Civil Emergency Network and a volunteer with the Scouts Jamboree on the Air. He is a member of the Hellenic Amateur Radio Association of Australia, or HAROA. He is a veteran de-expeditioner who has operated from such HAROA de-expeditions as Lord Howe Island, Montague Island and Norfolk Island, where he was a member of the HAROA team. Phil is a regional vice president of the Rotarians Group. The retired Air Commodore is a coordinator of the Food Bank program in New South Wales and ACT and chaired the Rotary Adventure in Citizenship program in 2017 amongst many of his other activities. The medal was created in 1975 by Elizabeth II to recognise Australian citizens and other persons for achievement of meritorious service. Congratulations to the deserving recipients. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Robert Broomhead, VK3DN.
Finally this week, we take a look at the Oscars. No, we're not going to Hollywood on you. For these Oscars, you look to the sky.
The number 100 is not to be taken lightly. In years, it marks a century. In percentages, it signifies totality. And in the language of modern-day text messaging, 100 means keeping it real. It is in that spirit that AMSAT celebrated the designation of the 100th Oscar satellite, a sail to P4A. The amateur radio satellite was launched last November from Cape Canaveral in Florida and is the first geostationary amateur radio payload. It was developed with AMSAT DL as technical lead and was a joint effort by the Qatar Amateur Radio Society and the Qatar Satellite Company, AsailSat. On the 23rd of December, its narrow and wideband transponders were tested successfully and are expected to open for general use this month. Qatar Oscar 100 is now in its final position at 25.9 degrees east. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Neil Rapp, WB9VPG.
And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at arnewsline.org. With Kevin Trotman, N5PRE, Robert Broomhead, VK3DN, Neil Rapp, WB9VPG, Karen Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW. 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Now here's the solar update with Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW.
We're finally calming down from some lingering fast solar wind that brought us a solar storm about a week ago. And old region 2733, it's about to rotate back into Earth view, and it's still firing solar storms. Those stories and more in the news this week. Space weather this week is definitely calming down compared to last week. We're finally exiting the remnant coronal hole that's kind of been throwing us pockets of fast solar wind and keeping us at unsettled conditions for quite some time. Now, we actually have had a couple solar storms that were launched on the sun's west limb, but they're not Earth directed, so we don't have anything to worry about there. And it looks like everything else is going to be pretty calm over the next few days and possibly through the end of this week before we begin to see activity pick up again. The one thing we are anticipating is old region 2733 is going to be rotating into Earth view here in the next couple days, and we're hoping it's going to keep that solar flux up for amateur radio operators and emergency responders. Switching to our M-flare threat meter, you can see the last time we actually had some decent flare activity was back around the turn of the month. This was from region 2733 that even fired off a few C-class flares before rotating behind the sun's west limb. And believe it or not, it's continued to be active on the sun's backside. But meanwhile, Earth's side, you can see the X-ray flux kind of tanks like that, and thereby by proxy, the solar flux continues to be low. We're in the low 70s now, and it means we're we're holding onto the marginal range for radio propagation, but just barely. Luckily, this is not going to last because we're about to get region 2733 back around Earthside. Now, it's going to be given a new number, but hopefully it will continue to brighten our day. Switching to our solar storm conditions, you can see back on February 1st was when we got hit by that fast wind from that really extended coronal hole. It bumped us up to storm levels and then down to active conditions. We then settled down to unsettled conditions, but then back up to active conditions again. That's kind of what these remnant coronal holes do. They keep sending pockets of fast wind that really keep the activity going for a while. In all, it took about a week, but things are finally beginning to settle down. We're finally exiting that kind of crazy region, and it gave aurora photographers a wonderful chance to get many gorgeous shots from all over the world. But now you aurora photographers can kind of settle down and take a breather, because it looks like we won't have another chance for a solar storm for about 10 days. And during this fast solar wind from this extended coronal hole, we've seen some gorgeous aurora photos from all over the world. And it is my pleasure to introduce my guest host, Kelly Philby, an educator with the LA Unified School System. She has meant the world to my daughter and to myself, and she's going to walk us through some of these aurora photos. And to Kelly and educators all over the world just like her, thank you so much for teaching our kids the hard subjects, especially math and science.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I'd like to give a big shout out to my 3 beautiful children, Brian, Brett, and Anani. I've never actually seen an aurora before, so I'm super excited to be here and showing everyone these gorgeous photos of auroras from all over the world. The first one is from Sweden. Then we have one from Scotland, Ireland, Cumbria in the UK. As we go over the Atlantic, we see aurora in Iceland. As we reach the Western Hemisphere, we see aurora in eastern Manitoba, Canada. It even dropped down to the USA, and we see aurora in Michigan and Montana. And as we go down south, aurora was seen in Tasmania and New Zealand.
So what else does the sun have in store for us this week? Well, this is stereo A. It's our backside monitor. You can see here's Earth, here's the sun, and here's stereo A staring at the sun from behind. And what you can immediately see is that bright region on the east limb of stereo's view. Keep your eye on it. Do you see that? Bam, right there. Did you see it fired a solar storm? This is old region 2733, and yes, it continues to be active. Now, this region is going to be rotating back into Earth view here in the next few days, and I guarantee you we're going to keep our eyes on it. It should boost the solar flux up back well into the marginal range for amateur radio operators and emergency responders, so that's good news. On top of that, we also have that finger-like coronal hole. Believe it or not, that coronal hole is the one that we've been doing a dance with for more months than I can even count anymore, and it could easily bring us yet another chance for a solar storm in about 10 days. Switching to our solar storm conditions and aurora possibilities over the coming week, we are finally exiting that massive coronal hole that brought us so many pockets of fast solar wind over the past week. At high latitudes, NOAA is expecting active conditions with about a 25 to 30% chance of a minor storm, with things settling down throughout the week. At mid-latitudes, we're expecting unsettled conditions with only up to about a 25% chance of active conditions. So your aurora photographers, take this week as a breather, because in about 10 days, we might have another chance for yet another solar storm. Switching to your solar flare and particle radiation storm outlook over the coming week, even though we do have a bright region on the Earth-facing sun right now, the sun is still spotless, so everything is in the green when it comes to solar flares. We have no risk for radio blackouts, which should make you GPS users on Earth's day side very happy. Now, we do have the solar flux lingering in the low 70s right now, and so this is the low end of marginal radio propagation. But the nice thing is we have region 2733 that's going to be returning into Earth view, so we could see that solar flux rise back into the mid-70s by next week. And that should make emergency responders and amateur radio operators very happy. Now, also because we are at basically a solar minimum sun, the cosmic ray penetration is larger than it normally would be. So all you frequent flyers, and this does include air crew who fly over 800 hours annually and fly at high altitudes and high latitudes, you are in the marginal range for radiation dose, and this does include you prenatal passengers, so please take this into consideration in your flight plans. So the space weather this week is finally giving us a reprieve. We're exiting that massive coronal hole that's been bringing us some fast solar wind for easily over the past week. So your aurora photographers, definitely take this time as a breather, because in about 10 days, we're going to have a new coronal hole that's going to rotate into the Earth strike zone, and it could give us a chance for yet another solar storm. Now, amateur radio operators and emergency responders, well, the solar flux right now is kind of sitting at the low 70s, but never fear, because old region 2733 is about to rotate into Earth view, and when it does, it's going to boost that solar flux up possibly into the mid-70s, which means we're going to have marginal radio propagation again on Earth's day side. Now, as far as you GPS users are concerned, well, we don't have any solar storms right now, and the solar flux is reasonably low, so both the reception on the day side and the night side of Earth should be pretty excellent. I'm Tamitha Skov. Thank you for watching.
Excellent report as always from Dr. T. If you're not following her on Twitter, you definitely should be, at Tamitha Skov, and a nice touch having her daughter's teacher on there. Very, very, very nice stuff. I want you to, there's a twit survey. The 2019 viewer survey is on right now. So go to twit.to/survey19 and tell the good folks at Twit, well, what you think of them. They want to know. They want to know about you and about your viewing habits and what you like and what you don't like. That way they can continue to make the Twit network just your favorite place on the web for technical stuff. And if you like Ham Nation, be sure and let them know, because we like being here. I want to say hello to our friends at WTWW Shortwave 2, 5085 and 15.810. If you'd like to email them, you can do that. Email at WTWW.us. Email your signal reports. And, of course, the QSO show is on Tuesday nights. And if you missed it last night, they had probably renowned, maybe the best specialist, person who knows the most about what goes on at Area 51. So if you missed that, you missed it. I'm sure you can probably find it on a podcast, but be sure and check out WTWW, our friends over there on the shortwave. Massive 100,000 watt plus shortwave station that beams the Ham Nation audio all around the world, and Bob Heil playing theater organ and the best rock and roll. It's a great station, so be sure you go and check that out. Nothing better than DXing, especially a little AM radio. But also, well, I don't know, maybe ham radio DXing is just as good. And February is a huge month for DXpeditions this year. One of the largest undertakings happening right now in the Sultanate of Brunei, where an international team is relying on equipment from DX Engineering to make contact with hams all around the world. It's the V84 SAA Brunei DXpedition. It's scheduled to be active from Seri Kenangan Beach in Brunei until February 18th. The V84 SAA ops are heavily focused on the low bands, 160 and 80 meter vertical antennas in use. This is the first DXpedition to operate on 60 meters from Brunei. That's kind of cool. And for those of you on 40 meters, they're using a DX Engineering Comtech ACB4 hybrid 4-square system with a switch relay unit and 4-square control console. The V84 SAA team also has chosen the DX Engineering phased array quarter wave tuned cables, Comtech control cable, and low band systems HF transmit band pass filters for 160 through 10, all available from DX Engineering. And if you're a DXer, you know, radio frequency interference can affect performance. It can affect a lot of things. And DX Engineering's new radio RF ground plane kits help solve this common problem. It includes a 1/16 inch thick copper sheet. You place that under your HF radios, microphones, and other devices, and then you connect it to your grounding bus. The large surface area of metal improves upon the single conductor grounding bus by equalizing the electric field around equipment and attached cables. It reduces voltage differences between pieces of equipment and associated currents that cause RFI. The kits come with a pre-drilled copper sheet in one of 3 sizes and hardware. It's also available with a MDF mounting board. I would never have thought about that. Chances are you probably wouldn't have thought about it too, but DX Engineering did. That's what sets them apart. For convenient mobile operation, DX Engineering now offers the incredibly lightweight, compact, and portable tactical mini telescopic mast, and that's from Soda Beams. It's an 11-section mast, collapses to just under 2 feet, 1.84 feet, in fact, small enough to fit in a backpack, but it fully extends to 19.6 feet, and the fiberglass mast is strong enough to withstand tough weather conditions, too. Makes a great support for Soda Beam BAM Hopper 2 and 3 antennas, dipoles, ground plane antennas, end-fed half-wave antennas. It's also available as a complete guying kit for the tactical mini mast, including 150 feet of cord, rings, insulators, anchor pegs, a winder, and a carrying bag. It's all from DX Engineering. And you know DX Engineering ships faster than anybody else in the industry. Most orders placed by 10 p.m. Eastern are shipped the same day. With its proven products and expert advice, DX Engineering is helping you shrink the globe. Request your catalog or shop online 24/7 at dxengineering.com/hamnation. dxengineering.com/hamnation. And we thank them for their support of Ham Nation. They have great equipment and test equipment in there as well, George. And I think you're going to talk about that a little bit, huh? A little test equipment talk on Smoke and Solder tonight?
I am going to talk about a little test equipment tonight, Don. Very little, but it does qualify as some. And some of it just barely qualifies as test equipment. But if you need it and it's all you got, it'll do the trick. You know, I thought I would talk a little bit about test equipment last week, and I made me 2 pages of notes here and had it all practiced up on what I was going to say, and then we ended up not using it because we were going to run over if we did. So I saved it for this week. Now, I have not reviewed my notes, so we're just going to kind of make this up as we go along. And Don, if I take a wrong turn there, if you will steer me back up on the track, being that you're driving the bus tonight.
Good luck with that.
That will help. But, you know, I just want to talk about simple test equipment tonight. And probably the simplest thing that you can use is a test light. I'm sure we've all seen them before. There's different types of them. The first one here, this is a low voltage test light for DC. You know, there's a couple of different kinds of those. These you'll usually get in, well, maybe they'll come in a Harbor Freight toolkit, or you might see them hanging on the pegboard at the auto parts store or at Walmart. And you just simply clip the alligator clip on, say, the negative post of your battery, although, yes, it is red there. I don't know why they did it that color. And then you just poke around with the little prod there, and you can find wherever you've got voltage, the light will light up in there. And that will let you know that you've got voltage up to that point. Now, that's a low voltage test lamp there, probably, you know, around 12 volts or so. There are other types of test lamps, though. Another real common one, you'll find these at the home supply store, is a neon test lamp, and these work on AC. And there's a little neon bulb inside this one, so it won't do anything if you hook it to DC. The other one we just looked at, well, if you hook that into your wall outlet, you're going to get one really bright light, but you're going to use up all the light at one point there, and you're going to let the smoke out of it too. So don't do that. Use one of these neon ones for testing AC. And like I say, they won't show anything on DC, but, you know, 2 different purposes there. Now, there's another type, a little newer. They've been around a few years now, and these are the no-contact voltage sensors. These, you can just kind of hold them close to electricity, and they will light up. Now, I think it's only AC that they work with, and I'm not sure how low a voltage it will go down to, but I know they'll indicate 110-volt circuits, typically the type of stuff you would have around your house, and, of course, higher voltages as well. And a lot of people use these today just to make sure that a circuit is off before they go in there monkeying around because, you when you get into higher voltage, it can be kind of dangerous. You don't want to just go running nilly-willy in there and touching the wrong thing. You want to make sure that that voltage is off. What if we had no test equipment and we had to check a circuit, say maybe a wire or whatever, typically might be a wire. We can throw together a little test light real quick, and I've done this before, just the parts of a flashlight when I didn't have anything else to test with, and I had to check a circuit, and it works. It's not the most eloquent solution in the world, but certainly works, and that is just a simple test light. You got say a DC bulb there, preferably 1.5 volt one, and a battery, and you just got your 2 leads coming out, and with that you can check continuity on your coax or anything that needs to have good conductivity. Now, there's certain circuits you might not want to go sticking a battery voltage into, but for most of the type of things I'm talking about here, you just need a quick and dirty way to check a wire or something like that. That works out just fine. And I've put one together here. This is, what we just saw. It's a C-cell battery, a little light bulb here, and I don't think this one's actually 1.5 volts because it doesn't get very bright, but I got my 2 leads, one coming from the battery, one coming from the other side of our test lamp. If touch them together, you can see the light illuminates there. And you can use this for cheaply testing circuits. Now, I know a lot of you have already done this and know exactly what this is, but there's a lot of folks who have, never done anything with electronics or electricity before, and that's who I'm aiming this at right here. Let's just say we got a piece of coax, and we don't know if it's good or bad or indifferent. This is a quick way we can check it. If we have no other test equipment, I can just take this and check the continuity. I'll put it on the tip of one connector over to the tip of the other, and it should light if there's continuity. And there is, so we know that the cable has got continuity all the way through, but we can also check it for a short. We keep one end there on the center conductor. The other we can touch to the shield of the cable here. It doesn't light up, so that means there's not a dead short on it. Just a quick way to check and see if you got continuity, little continuity tester. And like I said, if I had a meter, I would not do this. But if I didn't have one and that's all you got, if you're out on the desert island and all you got's a flashlight and a couple of pieces of wire, this is probably the best test equipment you could come up with. Now, stepping up from that, you might want to use a multimeter, and probably one of the most popular ones in the world is this one right here. This is a Simpson 260, and we've shown this one right here on the show a number of times before. It's good for a lot of different types of tests. It'll do continuity, AC and DC voltage. It'll do current. You can even measure sound pressure levels with it. Well, maybe not sound pressure levels, but decibels. There's a decibel scale on it there. Why would you want to use an analog meter like this old school meter here when today we've got digital meters? Well, a lot of people just like the way that the analog meter looks. It's old school, it's classic, it's easy to operate if you know how. If you've never used one, though, it can, it's not so easy. But for a lot of type of measurements, just having that analog meter there really helps out because you can see it fluctuate and tell more about the components you're measuring easily, more easily than you could with, say, a digital meter. And that's why you might like to have one of these. I used to say that, if I could only have one multimeter, it would probably be an analog. Well, I had to revise my thinking on that because in my toolbox I carry with me on the job, I don't have an analog meter in it. I've got a digital meter in it. So if I could only have one and I chose the digital, well, it's more compact, it's less fragile, but it's more accurate. Let's just look at accuracy and a couple of things that might affect your choices on a meter. First, here on this Simpson 260, and I'm still saying if you can find one of these that's in good condition at a good price, I would buy it, because they're still very useful. And a lot of occasions, this is the first meter that I'll reach for. Well, let's look at some of the specs. On an analog meter, the main spec that you usually look for is how many ohms per volt it is. On this Simpson, it is 20,000 k ohms per volt. Now, what that means, you take the number of ohms in the circuit of the meter and you divide that by the full scale reading. That means on the right-hand side of the scale here, and that'll give you the ohms per volt. 20,000 ohms on DC. On AC, it's only 1,000 ohms per volt. So, little difference in the readings there. Another thing that is important is the impedance of the meter. If you go hooking these probes here into an active circuit, a low-level circuit, if the impedance is very low, it could actually be affecting the circuit that you're trying to measure, thereby giving you a false reading and the circuit not working correctly. On this Simpson 260 here, I did some measuring. Well, actually, I looked at the schematic for it and traced it around and determined that on DC, it's got 50 k ohms or 50,000 ohms of impedance on the leads here when you hook it in circuit. On AC, it drops. It's 26.5 K. Now, on low impedance circuits, and higher voltage circuits, that's not really going to affect the circuit at all. But if you're down working on, say, transistor circuits, integrated circuits and such, it could have some effect on how the circuit's operating. Also, let's talk about accuracy. On DC, the accuracy on this meter is 3%. On AC, it's only 5%, and we're talking about full-scale readings. When you're using a analog voltmeter like this, you always try to adjust your scale to the lowest scale that can measure what it is you want to measure. You want this pointer to be up here in the upper range of the meter. You're going to get the most accuracy there. If, say, I'm trying to measure, let's say I'm trying to measure a signal that's 9 volts. If I put it on the 50 volt range, it's going to measure way down here. If I really wanted to measure 9 volts, I should flip it up to the 10 volt range there, and then it's going to measure up in this area. It's going to be more accurate. So one thing to keep in mind, really with any meter, but especially with analog meters, they're more accurate at full-scale readings. Now, another analog meter that used to be quite common before we had the digital meters would be a vacuum tube voltmeter called a VTVM, or the solid-state counterpart of that would be the FET-VOM. And I had one of those for years. I had one that Radio Shack sold that I really liked. But those are good meters as well. And really, they're better for a lot of measurements than you could do with, say, your Simpson 260 there, because, like I say, that meter is going to affect your circuit. And if you're measuring really low-level signals, you could be fooling yourself. The high impedance of the vacuum tube voltmeter or the FET-VOM are going to give you better performance. Now let's look at, a couple of digital meters here. And yes, I am referring to my notes because I have forgotten what I wanted to say about all of this. But let's start out, let's look at this one right here. This is a meter that's been with me over 20 years that I really like, and it wasn't a super expensive one. This actually came from Radio Shack. It was made by a company called Metex, It's a little unusual in that there's some little holes drilled here in the side, and it came with a cable that you could connect in here and hook it to the serial port on a computer and get your readings right out of the meter. Now, that's initially one of the reasons I bought it. It turns out I don't think I ever really used that. I hooked it up to see that that worked, but that's as far as I got with that. I ended up just using it for a meter. And this one is, well, it's like I say, it's been with me a lot of years. I really enjoy it. Now, this one is not auto ranging. You put it on whatever scale you want to measure and take your reading. If you are, say, like I'm on 2K here, if I hooked up a 3K ohm resistor, you know, it really couldn't read that. So I'd have to increase the scale right here. There are other meters that are auto ranging. We'll look at one of them here in just a moment. Save my battery. But looking at this meter here, I think this one was probably around 60 or 70 bucks. Let's look at the specs on it and compare it with what we were just looking at. The accuracy is better on this. For DC measurements, it's going to be 0.8% compared to, say, 3% with the Simpson 260. For AC measurements, this one will be plus or minus 1.2%, or if it's at full scale, if it's at the upper range of the scale that's selected, it can do as well as 0.8%. By the way, on DC, it could have done as well as 0.3% at full scale. So you're talking about a fair amount better accuracy than you had with the Simpson 260. They don't give you the ohms per volt readings on digital meters. At least I have not been able to find it. But I am interested in the impedance of that meter there, because, like I say, that's what's going to load down your circuit, possibly affect it. On this meter right here, the input impedance for measuring either DC volts or AC volts is 10 megohms. Well, that is quite a bit better than the 50K ohms impedance that we had with the Simpson 260. So it would be a better choice for doing low-level and high impedance type circuit measurements. At one other spec, the resistance on this, 1% accuracy or 0.5% if it's at full scale. So let's look at another meter here, and this one, it's a little more expensive. This is not one of the top-of-the-line flukes here, but it was one suited well for what I wanted to use to put in my toolbox to carry around. This is a Fluke 115. This one's mostly marketed at, I would say, electrical work, but I needed something that would measure high voltages so that I could have it with me at transmitter sites and such. The accuracy is good on it as well. This one is auto ranging. We just select either a AC volt range there, or a DC volt, or any of the other measurements here, and it automatically adjusts its scale depending on the voltage that we're sending in. Now, that's much easier to work with because you don't have to worry about putting it on the right range. On this meter, really it's not much of an effect. Say if you wanted to measure a 100-volt signal and you accidentally had it on the 20-volt range, you're probably not going to damage this meter. The old analog Simpson 260, though, you might. This one here, it's going to select its range automatically. There's a good thing, though, about having one with fixed ranges. You know exactly what you're looking at. If I put this on the 20K range here, and I looked up and it said 10, or actually, it would say a little more than 10, but I would know that my reading could not be more than 20,000 ohms. On this one, I don't really notice. I got to look a little closer at the legends there and be sure what it's saying on there. Like right here, it says megohms. If you're not looking closely, though, you might miss that. You might think you're measuring K ohms. So you just have to be a little more aware with these auto ranging meters what you're looking at. But let's talk a little bit about the accuracy on it. I was thinking, that Fluke's going to be a fair amount more accurate than my old Radio Shack meter. Well, let's see. The AC voltage, for measuring AC voltages, the input impedance on this Fluke is going to be 5 megohms. What did I say it was over on the Radio Shack? 10 megohms. So the Radio Shack one's going to affect the circuit a little less possibly than the Fluke would, although you get up into the megohms like that, neither one is going to have a big effect on most circuits. For DC, this one, the input impedance would be 10 megohms, just like the Radio Shack. It would be the same there. The accuracy on this one, 0.5% on DC, 1% on AC, 0.9% on ohm. So it's very similar to the Radio Shack one. So really the accuracy of these two meters is very close. So you would think, well, why would I spend more and say get the Fluke or a more expensive meter than one that was maybe a little bit less? Well, there's another real important spec that you got to look at when you're talking about the digital voltmeters. If we're talking about, this one right here, there's a maximum count. If you notice when you turn it on, there'll be a number displayed. Let's just go over here to voltage. And I'm on the 20 volt scale there. It measures 0.00. The most the display on this meter, on this particular meter, can display is 1,999. So any of the readings I take with it are going to have to be scaled to where it cannot show more than 1,999 on the display. That's called the count. The count on this Fluke meter over here is 6,000. The highest number it could display is 6,000. So it can give you a little more accurate reading just because of the display capabilities. So that is one thing to keep in mind. When you're looking for a digital meter, check out the count. What is the count of that meter? Now, you can buy these digital meters really cheap now. A lot of folks buy the ones at Harbor Freight. And I'll admit that I have some cheap meters as well because you can't have too many meters. And I just like to leave a meter everywhere that I think I might need one so that I don't accidentally show up somewhere to a party without an ohm meter. You know how painful that could be. Here's another one here. This is a little Tenma meter. I like it because it's got a fairly decent sized display there. And it does most of the ranges you want. It'll even go up to 1,000 volts here. Maybe not safely, but it has an 1,000 volt range on it. That's for DC. Over here on AC, it only goes to 750. But let's just compare the specs of it just to see how they stack up. This meter here, you can't buy it anymore. I don't think it was $30. I think it was 30 or less, but I really don't remember exactly what I paid for it. I've got meters I paid a little less for, though. But let's just see how it stacks up. The first thing let's talk about is the input impedance on it. We talked about on DC, this one was 10 megohms. The Fluke was 10 megohms. This little Tenma here, 1 megohm input impedance on DC. So it is more likely to load down the circuit that you're trying to test, although 1 megohm is still, a fairly high impedance. Well, let's talk about AC. We said over there on the Fluke that the AC input impedance on it was 5 megohms. The Radio Shack was 10 megohms. This one, 450 k ohms. So, that's getting on a little lower impedance there. More chance that, that cheap Tenma or Harbor Freight meter might load down the circuit that you're trying to measure. I don't have accuracy specs for this meter, so I can't give you those. I don't know how accurate it is. Although I'll say when I compare it with the others, it compares favorably. It's not way out, but the count, the Radio Shack, 1,999, the Fluke, 6,000. What do you think the Tenma would be? Well, 999. So only half as good as a Radio Shack as far as, the precision it can display there on the display. Only 1/6 as good as the Fluke. So that's why you might want to spend a few more dollars on a digital meter, although I don't really discourage the cheaper meters. I'd say, if that's what you got, that's better than no meter at all. And if that's what you can afford, then by all means use it. But just be aware of the difference between the various meters you might encounter there and why you might want a higher quality meter for some type of measurements. If all you're doing is measuring the voltage coming out of a wall outlet over there or checking for continuity on a cable, any of those meters would be just fine for that. So there you go, my little discussion on test equipment and some of the most basic test equipment that you could want. There's a good multimeter. If you can't use that, though, all you got is a flashlight. Well, you can tear it apart and make you at least a continuity checker. But, last week I asked a question on here kind of related to this segment. What is another name for a volt-ohm meter? And I got an answer. Got a lot of answers on this one, and I would say practically everybody who answered it got the answer correct. But, we do a random drawing and see whoever comes out with the right answer, and they win it. Well, this week it was Colin Kugel, KC1HBK, and Colin said another name for a volt-ohm meter would be a multimeter. And that's correct, Colin. We're going to send you a copy of Gary Drash's Ham Radio is Alive and Well, Gary's reintroduction to the hobby after a number of years being out, and a discussion of all the fun things you can do in amateur radio today. You'll enjoy that. For next week, well, Gordo is not here tonight, so it's an excellent opportunity to give away one of his books, either a general or extra class license exam, I believe what he's got there that we can give away on the show. We're going to draw a question tonight, though, out of the extra class guide. So this one's going to be a little bit tougher. What I want to know is which of the following represents a capacitive reactance in rectangular notation? That's right. I said it, rectangular notation. Is it minus J, little j, X, capital X, or is it plus little j, capital X? Is it just simply X, or is it omega? Which of those represents a capacitive reactance in rectangular notation? If you think you know the answer, send it to me, hamnationcontest@gmail.com, and you could win one of Gordo's amateur radio study guides. Best amateur radio study guides in the world. Definitely got what you need in there to upgrade your license or, actually get your first ham radio license with Gordo's study guides there. You won't find better study material for your exam. Well, now we've got another little segment here. This is something that I did, and I don't remember how long ago it was now, but I think it will tell you right here in the video something that, I think it's an important subject, and maybe you will too. When it comes to experimenting or building one-off projects, you've got a lot of ways you can go. You can do point-to-point wiring, where components are wired from one to another directly, or by using standoffs to support them. You can use generic PC boards like this one here. There's a solder pad under each hole where you can mount your components and then jumper everything together with wires. You can get others that have actual pads with some length to them and some buses on them that make it easy to build circuits, still using jumper wires to tie everything together. You can make your own PC boards with a variety of different methods, like using an ink resist pen and drawing straight onto the board and then burning it in an acid bath. Or you can use rub-on transfers and get straighter lines, make your PC board. Or you can create your artwork on a computer, print it out to a special paper, and iron it on to a PC board, and then burn it. You can send your artwork out to a board house and have them make the boards for you if you think you're going to need a lot of them. You can even get experimenter boards for surface mount work. This one right here takes a surface mount chip. You solder it right there, and then you've got some pads around the edges here where you can add your other components. There's a method called dead bug where you glue components upside down with their legs sticking up in the air like a dead bug and solder them all together that way. But there's a couple of other methods you can do that are fairly simple and quick. Manhattan style, you take a piece of perf board. First, we sand it down real good to get all the tarnish off of it. And then you cut out little pieces of PC board. A lot of people will do it in a square. I cut out some here with a hole punch. And you take these, arrange them where you want them, and then glue them down. You'll want to make sure you've got them in the right positions to line up with your components. Then you use them like islands to support the components up off the PC board. Anywhere you need to go to ground, you just solder straight to the PC board. There's been a lot of projects built using this method. I've never built one myself, so sooner or later I'm going to have to get around to that. Looks like it would work pretty well. The only thing I don't like about it is that you're gluing these pads down to the board, and it just seems to me like maybe that could be a weak point in the future. There's another style very similar to Manhattan style. I don't know if it's even got a name yet, but you use one of these. This is a rotary spot weld cutter. I got this at Harbor Freight, and I don't remember who told me about this. I wish I did, and I'd give them credit. It sounds like a great idea. What you do is you take the spot weld cutter, put it on the PC board, and then you just drill out the little islands everywhere you need them. Now, I've never tried this before, so let's go out to the drill press and see how it works. Let's take a look at our work. Not too bad. I almost got a little carried away on the first one, went a little deeper than I needed to. And then I kind of got some here pretty good. A couple others, I could have gone a little further. All of them, though, have got a good clean break through the PC board there. So none of these are shorted to the PC board. I think I kind of like this. Let's mount a few components and see how it goes. components are on there good. I don't feel like we'd have any problems with this. So you might ask, what is this circuit? I'm not really sure. I just had a lot of extra parts around, so I thought I would mount something. So there you go. Another good way to do your prototyping or one-off builds. This little rotary spot welder cutter is just the thing for semi-Manhattan style.
The whole time I was wondering, like, what the heck is he building with all that stuff? Because I couldn't figure out what it was going to be, but now I see it's a parts catch-all.
When I told you Manhattan style, you really didn't know what...
I wasn't sure what it was.
Yeah.
Now that you say that and I look at that, I think I remember Jimmy Burrell talking about this at one time.
It's reverse Jimmy style. See, you gotta be prepared for those, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's right up there, Emil.
All right.
Yeah, the tip here, I noticed someone in the chat room saying that it looked pretty wobbly. Well, that actually is spring-loaded, so it pushes down when you go to drill. So the fact that it wobbled a little bit didn't matter. It did put a little punch in the center of, in the center of the pads there, but not really an issue. And we know now who it was that told me about that, Tommy.
I think your punch is not perfectly straight anyway. It looks like it's a little bit off.
Yeah, it may be. It kind of wobbles around.
It's a Harbor Freight?
It's Harbor Freight.
Oh, that explains it.
But it doesn't really matter. I mean, it's...
Yeah, it didn't hurt anything.
Yeah, because that's not what's doing the cutting. It's the kind of saw part around the outside there. So, you know, I mentioned I couldn't remember who had told me about that. Well, we found him here in the chat room. It's Chip, K9MIT. He's the one who told me about it. And that little tip there in the middle, that will come out. You can, on the bottom here, there's a screw you can unscrew, and there's a spring and all up in there.
Oh, okay.
Looks like a little ball bearing. It actually looks like a BB. And then the tip, you can pull it out. You don't have to have it.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to kind of guide it and get it in the neighborhood there.
This is the first time I've ever done that, and I had never heard about this until, Chip wrote me about it, and I like it.
Yeah, it's pretty neat stuff. It looks like it makes it pretty easy.
It did. It made it real easy to throw together a quick board where you've got a few components, and you're not really using any small stuff.
You don't have to worry about chemicals to etch the board or anything. So.
It's fast.
Yeah. Pretty neat stuff.
Yeah.
Nice tip.
So yeah, thanks for that tip.
Nice tip, Chip.
Yeah, I'll be using that again. Create your own band opening with the IC9700. Icom's newest SDR transceiver, the IC9700, is coming soon. This new radio is bringing direct sampling to the UHF-VHF weak signal world. The IC9700 all-mode transceiver is loaded with innovative features, such as dedicated amateur satellite operation, color touchscreen, built-in D-Star capability, RF direct sampling on 2 meters and 70 centimeter bands, dual independent receivers capable of full duplex operation as well as dual watch, 100 watts maximum output power on 2 meters, 75 watts max on 70 centimeters, and 10 watts max on 1.2 gigahertz. Visit icomamerica.com/amateur for more information on all the great Icom radios. Attention all hams. Icom knows that ham clubs play a big role in bringing ham communities together to learn from their peers and industry leaders. As a way to give back and help you on your mission, Icom has launched a promotion exclusively for U.S. ham clubs and the ham fest they're involved with. By registering your club, you could win Icom swag, a Skype presentation for your club, or your ham fest, an Icom booth setup. Register today for your chance to win at icomamerica.com/hams. You can tune in and enter to win. After each episode of Ham Nation, go to icomamerica.com/hamnation. Register to win some great swag prizes. They've got T-shirts and hats, and you'll automatically be entered in the monthly grand prize drawing for a new radio. For February, that is the ID 4100A. It's an entry-level D-Star mobile with big rig features. Dual band, one band at a time, analog and D-Star, Upgraded user interface, built-in GPS included, DV fast data mode, near repeater search function. There's a micro SD card slot for voice and data storage, and there's an optional U2-137 Bluetooth board available. And there's downloadable Android and iOS apps available as well. So go to icomamerica.com/hamnation after this in each episode and register to win. Sign up, good luck, and don't forget to follow Icom America Inc. on Facebook and Twitter. And now here is the queen of the chat room here with us tonight, as always, Amanda.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I have to show everybody something. I got this really cute, let me get it up there. Be My Valentine, K1DDN. That came from WA2IVD. Thank you so much, Tom. I think you sent both me and Valerie one, and I didn't realize what the package was for quite a while. I thought it was an Amazon thing that I ordered, and then my Amazon package showed up, and I said, oh, so what's this package? So I opened it. Sorry, I didn't show it until now. I didn't know what it was. So thanks, Tom, so much. It was really cute. Let's see. This last weekend, I supported the Snow Queen 5K, 10K run. It was an all-ladies event, so I got all the ladies out that I could to help support it as well. So I'd like to thank those ladies, Marlis and Candy. You were spectacular and awesome on the radio. And we're also teaching a ham class here on February 23rd in Walsh, Colorado. We're going to get a bunch of people licensed in a place where it's pretty desolate and not a lot of hams. So looking forward to that as well. And one announcement, we have the RM Ham and Aurora Repeater Association Swap Fest this Sunday starting at 9 a.m. at the Adams County Fairgrounds. So if anyone's in the Denver, Colorado area, I hope you get out there and support that. Let's see, what else? A couple of questions here. W2IVD, Tom asks, Don and George, both of you, have you ever worked aurora propagation on 6 meters? And do you think that you could work aurora at the South Pole, since Tamitha had shown pictures of that? It was kind of interesting. He says he's only worked the North. You first, George.
No, I have never. And do I think you could work it on the South Pole? Well, yeah, it looked like there was some down there, so I would say yeah. And, I don't really know how well that would work in this part of the country. I guess maybe it would, but, we never see auroras around here. So I'll let Don bail us out on that one.
Well, I'm not much help either. The only 6 meter I've really ever done, I did a little bit of 6 meter mobile, very little bit. But here at the house, the only 6 meter antenna I have is an 80 meter off center fed dipole, which works amazingly well. But, it's not like having a 3-element Yagi up on a mast or anything. So no, I have not. My 6 meter experience is very, very low, and I would have absolutely no clue as to whether or not you could reach the South Pole on 6 to work that aurora. So I don't know. I'm not much help today.
Yeah, I know. We don't have our 6 meter experts here, Bob and Gordo. I mean, no. They work it and they enjoy it a lot. And I do work some 6 and stuff, but never like during aurora. I've never done any EME stuff. But it's fun when the band opens up. I'll tell you that. All right. The other question, George, I'll send this one to you. How do I get rid of rectangular rotation?
Very carefully. Yeah, you want to be careful. I have no idea what they're asking about. So once again, we'll let Don bail us out.
With extreme prejudice. With extreme prejudice. I think they're going back to your question. That was one of the choices on your question, I believe. The impedance question on the extra test. And that, that threw me off too, because when I was studying for my extra, and I'm looking at all these questions, and all of a sudden I see these impedance questions, and it's like J this and X that. I'm like, what? There's letters in math? I was completely unprepared. And that's why I studied my extra for a year, because of those questions right there. So yeah, it's like, I want no part of that.
Well, and if either one of you guys can ever explain polar coordinates to me and what we need that for on our extra test, I'm all ears. Maybe.
The guy who wrote this book could explain it to you, I'm sure. And maybe we can ask him
if he were
next
only
week.
here.
Yeah.
I'm telling you. And yes, I threw in that question because I said I wanted to trip you guys up. So there you go. I did want to say one thing, George. You were talking about your making your boards, and Jeff and I found this since I own a print shop. I have a plate burning capability. So Jeff kind of sketched out his circuits, and I made a negative of it, and then stuck it on one of those boards and burnt it like I would a metal plate for the press. And then we developed it, and that was pretty interesting. It kind of worked, actually. The developer wasn't exactly strong enough to develop it, so I was kind of curious. Have you ever done that where you've created a board and developed it or anything?
Yeah, I have. It's been years ago, and back at that time, I didn't have a lot of capabilities to do it with. I drew my drawing on I guess it might have been a Commodore 64. I don't remember, but it was back in the days where the best printer resolution was a 300 dot per inch dot matrix printer is what we had at home. And so that's what I printed my artwork with. Then I took it to the copy machine at work, and I put it on there, and I put a laser transparency in, and I transferred it on to the transparency. So I had a positive there, and I had some of the PC board that was, I guess it was positive synthesized. I could be backwards on that. But anyway, that's what I used, and I put it on there, and I actually managed to burn a few boards with it. They were kind of jagged, but they worked.
Okay. Well, see, that's all I needed to know. Yeah, Jeff was doing it to make like a homemade URI or something like that. I can't really remember anymore, but as we stopped actually doing negatives. We don't make the negatives in-house anymore. It's just it's easier to just get them made at a company and they ship them to us. But I still save some developer just in case Jeff wants to do that again. So, all right, let's go over some things. We're going to wrap this up. We have some nets going on. We have 40 meter net on 7192. Steve W7UDI says 3908 for tonight. And we have TAC 311 for the DMR net. D-Star on 14 Charlie. So hope you get out there, get on the radio and say hi to your net control operators and tell them thank you very much for doing this every week. We really appreciate it. And I love joining in when I can. So with that, Dawn, back to you.
All right. Well, thanks, Amanda and George for being here tonight. Of course, maybe we'll get Gordon and Bob back next week and get the band back together. But this has been fun. Kind of a nice, relaxing Ham Nation tonight. So for the three of us and for the ones who aren't here, we'll say good night, 7-3, and thanks for watching. And we'll see you next week here on Ham Nation. Good night, everybody.